If you were to count all the books you read in the past decade, would you feel ashamed and sad? Does your phone give you existential dread? Are you constantly thinking to yourself, I should read more. Why don't I read anymore? If this is you, I feel you. That was me. Hi, my name is Catherine, and if you're new here, welcome to my channel where we talk about books you should read instead of stuff you should buy. I used to love reading as a kid, and then I graduated college and just stopped. Like, not completely, but I would maybe read 4 books a year, which is pretty pathetic for someone who once identified as a reader. I came to this horrific realization that I had shifted from reader to phone addict. In the colloquial sense, okay, not the clinical sense. Not to play into the moral panic about smartphones, but my screen time was atrocious. I was averaging like 7 to 9 hours a day on my phone, and I remember thinking, am I going to be doing this when I'm 90 years old? Sitting here mindlessly scrolling and switching between apps and looking back at my life with such a deep regret for wasting so much time? But at the time, I couldn't stop. Years later, I hit rock bottom, and it was actually a book that helped me out. Digital Minimalism by Cal Newport inspired me to delete my social media accounts, with the exception of YouTube and Instagram. Rather than deleting Instagram, I just stopped posting, which significantly reduced my draw to the app. It turns out I have much less interest in what other people are doing than I had in checking to see if anyone else had liked or commented on my latest post. Although I got my phone screen time down to like 3 hours, I didn't immediately turn back into a voracious reader. There's TV, of course, and YouTube, which I mostly listen to rather than watch, so it's not the worst habit. But these two things still kept me from doing what I knew I should be doing more of, which was reading. We all know that reading is good for us, just like we all know eating fruits and vegetables and exercising are good for us. But you might be thinking, what exactly makes reading superior to watching TV? Like, doesn't it just depend on what you're consuming? Books can be stupid and serve only as entertainment, and TV shows can be educational. Both are sedentary activities, so why is reading generally viewed as productive, while watching TV is not? I mean, they're not inherently sedentary activities since audiobooks and iPads exist. I personally love listening to a book while walking my dogs and watching a show while running on the treadmill. But assuming you're sitting, reading generally requires more mental processing than watching TV. It takes more effort and attention to comprehend a story or concept when you're only receiving one form of sensory input, whether reading the words on the page or hearing them. TV is a more passive activity because taking in multiple sensory inputs at once requires less mental processing. I say generally because, of course, the content matters. There are certain TV shows that are more edifying than certain books. But there's a reason reading is considered exercise for your brain, while watching TV is considered brain rot. Studies show that reading improves focus and helps prevent dementia, while watching too much TV shortens your attention span and increases your risk for dementia. Although I'll occasionally stay up too late reading a good book, or read until my vision starts to blur and my body is screaming at me to move, I'm more inclined to do this with a TV show. Like, I literally pulled an all-nighter watching season 3 of The Summer I Turned Pretty. I might make a whole video on why that show is so good despite being so cringy and ridiculous.
It's ridiculous!
It's ridiculous!
It's ridiculous!
Wait, how do you say it again?
He was like, well, when you think about it, it's just kind of ridiculous.
I fucking love it. Anyway, I highly doubt that I would have stayed up all night had I been reading the books. I mean, how many people do you know who have a binge reading problem compared to a binge watching problem? So now that we've established that reading is in fact good for you and you should read more, how do you bring yourself to actually do it? My first tip is to make a list of books that you actually want to read, not books that you think you should read. If you have no idea where to even start, watch a bunch of book rec videos on YouTube. Coming soon on this channel, subscribe. My second tip is to download Libby. This is a free library app where you can rent ebooks and audiobooks from your local library. If you don't have a library card, get one. If you don't have a Kindle or e-reader, buy one. Preferably secondhand because fuck Amazon. And once you have an e-reader and you've downloaded Libby, start placing holds. I didn't realize this at first, but if a bunch of books suddenly become available to borrow at once, you don't have to panic and speed read through them. You can suspend holds. Another hack I learned is that if one of your borrows is expiring soon and you need a bit more time, you can put your Kindle on airplane mode and it will remain accessible until you reconnect to Wi-Fi. My next tip is to download Storygraph, which is like Goodreads, but it's not owned by Amazon. Set a goal for yourself that is attainable. If you once upon a time loved reading like I did, and you're child-free like I am, a book a week is very doable. But if you've always hated reading but you know you should read, and or you have a gaggle of children to take care of, maybe set your goal to a book a month. 12 books a year may not sound like a lot, but it's more than most people, so you can pat yourself on the back for that. Also, it's not a competition. The purpose of your reading goal is for you to live a more fulfilling life, not to impress other people. Now that you're all set, start with page turners. If you loved reading as a kid, what books do you remember being unable to put down? What genres excite you the most? For me, this is romance, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. At least not anymore. I remember this one time in high school, my history teacher caught me reading in class, and he made me show the whole class what I was reading, and I almost died of embarrassment when I held up The Truth About Forever by Sarah Dessen with a little flower on the cover. You may find romance novels too cringy, and I get it. Even the best rom-coms are a bit cringy. But I love a good rom-com, what can I say? If romance is not for you, try mystery or sci-fi or horror. Stephen King can write a page-turner. Or think of shows you've binged and try reading something popular in that genre. Popular does not always equal good, but a lot of times stuff is popular for a reason. If you make it 50 pages in and you'd still rather put it down and scroll on social media, move on to the next. And that brings me to my next tip. Don't be afraid to DNF. If you're not a book junkie, that stands for did not finish. It's more than okay to give up on a book that you don't find engaging. Life's too short, and there are too many good books out there to force yourself to finish boring books. Unless you're in school, no one is grading you on it. You may think that you've already invested so much time into it, you may as well finish it so it counts towards your reading goal. But counterintuitively, this manufactured obligation may hinder you from reaching your goal. Because there are so many times when you could pick up a book and read, but the book you're reading is kind of a drag. So instead, you pick up your phone. If you move on to the next, you'll more quickly find a book that you cannot put down and finish in 2 days. Right now, for example, I had to pry myself away from the book I'm reading to work on this video. Next, after 1 month or so of reading books you uppercase want to read, you can start incorporating books you lowercase want to read. Because you don't only want to read books that you all caps want to read. Because I'm assuming that the reason you want to be a reader in the first place is not purely to be entertained. You also want to be informed and intellectually stimulated. But unfortunately, books you lowercase want to read are not exactly page turners. You're gonna have to exert some self-discipline. But this is much easier to do once you've established a consistent reading habit. And to clarify, books you lowercase want to read are not in the same category as books you think you should read. For example, I know that I should read classics, but unfortunately, classic literature makes me want to kill myself. Unless it's Jane Austen. Again, I love a good romance. But I genuinely want to learn about politics. I'm just not itching to get back to my book about income inequality, like I'm currently itching to get back to my rom-com, because the suspense is killing me. Will they or won't they? Some books require no motivation to finish whatsoever, the uppercase want category, while some require you intentionally set aside time to read, the lowercase want category. And perhaps once you've transcended to the next level where you're eagerly tearing through your lowercase want TBR list, you can try the books that you know you should read. Just don't force yourself to finish them. I'm sure there are books in the should category that, if you just gave them a chance, they could end up in the lowercase want category, or hell, even the uppercase want category. My next tip is to listen to audiobooks. Anyone who claims audiobooks don't count is being stupid and ableist. Like, are you saying that blind people aren't real readers? I mean, there's Braille, but you get the point. The only way they don't count is if you tune out and don't actually absorb the information. But I'm sure you've found yourself reading the words on the page, only to reach the end of a paragraph and realize that you didn't actually comprehend anything you just read. So you go back and reread it. It's the same with audiobooks. There's this little thing called the rewind button. The great thing about audiobooks is that you can multitask, as long as whatever activity you're doing doesn't require much brain power. I listen to audiobooks while walking my dogs, driving long distances, and cleaning or doing laundry. I found that cooking requires too much of my attention, so I end up rewinding so much that it ruins the experience. Without audiobooks, I don't think I would have been able to get through 52 books last year. They make it so much easier to set aside time to read those lowercase want to read books. Because when you're doing these mundane tasks that you have to get done, you're in a more productive state of mind, so you're more inclined to pair that activity with the productive activity of listening to an educational audiobook. Versus when it's the end of the day and you just want to sit on the couch, your brain craves entertainment rather than educational content. That being said, listening to the audio version will not necessarily make a super dense book you're struggling to get through more tolerable. In fact, you'll likely find it even more difficult to comprehend, unless you pair the audio with the physical book, which I've heard helps. Many readers can attest that the audio format works well for some books, but not for others. I find that the best audiobooks are memoirs or nonfiction books written in a conversational and accessible style. My last tip is to join a few book clubs, but don't commit. You may think you should commit to hold yourself accountable, but then you risk falling into the trap I mentioned earlier, where you pick up your phone instead of a book because the book you have a manufactured obligation to read is not holding your attention. I join book clubs non-committally because I'm interested in seeing what other people are reading. I'll try out what intrigues me, but I'm not afraid to DNF. Thank you so much for watching. I hope these tips were helpful. And if you have any tips, post them in the comments. All right, peace out.
In all honesty, I really don't give a fuck what y'all do, but what I beg of all of y'all this year, read a fucking book. I don't give a damn what the book is about. I don't care about the genre. I don't care how long or short the book is. I want everybody to read a fucking book because we are in danger. Okay? I want y'all to run to your nearest library or bookstore. Get a book from your friend. I don't give a damn where you get the book from. Read it. I want you to sit down and read that bitch. Okay? Because it has been scientifically proven that reading can significantly improve comprehension and critical thinking skills. And y'all motherfuckers are dumb. I'm over it. One step at a time. Read a fucking book. Pick up a book. I don't give a fuck about you. I don't like to read. You better start. Because it is showing. It's seeping out your pores. Okay? Fuck.